Buddy, what's up? I guess I'm live right now. Honestly, it's hard for me to tell. I'm using Twitch Studio. I'm not using OBS. I've never been able to get OBS to work. Um, but I decided today that uh, I was gonna do a little bit of. Hold on, I can't actually hear anything. I might need headphones. Nah, I'll be fine. I don't need to hear this game. So I was watching um, Doctor K, the healthy gamer. I think that's his name. And there was a that sort of sparked some intrigue in me, which was like, you know what? I like what this guy's doing. I like the therapy aspect of this. So, I kind of want to do I kind of want to give that a shot just for like a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look up maybe some Reddit posts or something um about like mental health and things like that, and see if there's anything. I'm not a mental health professional. I'm not even any kind of professional. um but I think this could be kind of fun, and it's something that I was potentially intrigued by. uh you know doing something along these lines. My camera is gone or something. My webcam that I normally use, so that's why you can't see me. Um, mhm. Now trying to find something to react to that would be sort of appropriate, because some of this stuff is pretty heavy. The first one that I found has 8 upvotes on the Healthy Gamer GG subreddit. Um, is is someone who says, out of the 300 people who viewed my profile, this is about dating. So the header is, just put yourself out there in quotes, and every time I try, it ruins my self-esteem and confidence. So this is someone who is um, venting about how people tell you to just put yourself out there, and then every time he tries or she tries to put themselves out there, it ruins their self-esteem and confidence. And then they go on to say, out of the 300 people who viewed my profile, only 1.6% of people who have actual profiles and are within my age range have messaged me or tapped. Nearly all of the conversations ended up dying, even though I showed an interest in the other person. In fact, sometimes I feel like I ask too many questions. I'm getting pretty tired of all this dating advice because no matter what I do, it doesn't seem to work for me. I got rejected by a girl 2 years ago. I've tried doing all this working on yourself stuff. I don't know. Um, my self esteem takes a massive hit every time I try doing this. Should I take a break? Am I just burnt out? Am I trying too hard? I'd really like to figure out what I'm doing wrong, and if anyone could help me. No period. No punctuation at the end. Um, yeah, I'm okay. So I'm gonna dive into this one. Um, and just to reiterate, like this is not something that I really know anything about. Um, I'm just kind of here to talk about it, if that makes sense, while trying to do the most upsetting game that I have in my Steam library, which is such a great idea and a great combination. First of all, like this person doesn't really seem to be, thankfully, this person doesn't seem to be completely in like despair mode about this yet. They also didn't seem to give any information about their age. So the first thing they say is, out of the 300 people who viewed my profile, only 1.6% of people who have actual profiles and are within my age range have messaged me or tapped. Um, that's interesting. I don't have any idea what app or website this is where you can see the people who view your profile. So that's a good question. First of all, are you sure that's really how many people are looking at your profile? Um, and then they say messaged me or tapped, which is like typically on dating apps, you are swiping right a lot more often than you are messaging. Um, if my experience is to be the indicator of anything, and I've been on Tinder. Um, I've been getting back into Tinder recently. I mean that's to say, like, I wasn't really into it to begin with, but now I'm starting to get into it. Maybe, I guess, for the first time. Um, and it is depressing. Like that is absolutely true. So if you're using a dating app and you're like, man, this is depressing. Does anybody else feel this way? Yes. Everyone else who uses dating apps, it is it is depressing. Like that is the only, I don't know how else to say it. It is depressing, and it is depressing for everyone who uses them. If they use it even remotely seriously. So unless you're just like like, okay, even if you were like the hottest woman on the planet, um, like you're like Victoria's Secret, you're like Miranda Kerr levels of beautiful and swipeable, you know, you're still gonna run into people who are weird. You're still gonna have trouble with the conversations. It's still gonna be awkward, and most of us are nowhere near that, right? And we have insecurities, and it feels really awkward and strange to do all this stuff, and people aren't matching with you. People aren't swiping on you, you know, and that's everybody's experience on the dating apps virtually. So if you feel that way, you're in great company, because that is how it is for every single person who uses those apps. Even if you're a guy, you look like Chris Pine from 2007, and you're ripped and you've got abs, and you've got like the perfect profile, and you're witty and all of that stuff. Like, you're just, it doesn't matter someone like that probably still has a hard time on dating apps, okay? So having 300 people who view your profile and only 1.6% of people who have profiles or whatever have messaged me or tapped, like that's not really outside of the normal experience for a dating app or something like that. It's really not outside of the normal experience at all. If that's your experience, that's pretty normal. It's also pretty normal to be depressed afterwards and humiliated maybe and way more insecure than you were beforehand. You can go into it with so much confidence and swipe 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 for literally hours and not hit a single match. That is the normal experience, at least for me, and I think for most male humans that use the app. Um, that's the normal experience. I think from what I've heard on the internet, at least, the experience is completely different for women. Uh, it's a totally different experience, but still maybe no less depressing. And I think a lot of the apps are pretty similar. I've really only used Tinder. I have a Hinge profile. I have a Bumble profile. Um, and I think I have a Plenty of Fish profile, but I don't think I've used it. The only one that I've really actually used is Tinder because it's just the one that you can get into the easiest. I feel like there's something about it where you just you just feel like you can jump in and kind of get things rolling a little bit with less like commitment. There's less commitment. It's easier to start, you know. So that's the one that I've sort of been drawn to the most. And according to the online stuff that I've seen, it seems to be the one that is the most successful for people. More people have met their partners on there than any others, um, as far as I can tell. I mean, maybe that was paid for. I mean, that was just like the front page of the Google search. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't think I was particularly searching for that. I think it just kind of came up tangentially to something else. Um, so like that's a normal experience. If you're having these feelings, that's you're in great company because that's basically how everybody feels when they use the dating apps. As far as like what the best strategy would be for something like that, I feel like the best strategy is just to or I feel like the first step is to just like kill the part of you that gets frustrated by this stuff. I was actually reading about dating apps, and the thing that got me back into the dating apps was actually um, something that you would think would be really discouraging, which was that like it frequently takes people like a year or something to get like an actual, if they're looking for a relationship. It takes them like 9 months or something like that, but like between like 9 months and 12 months to get something solid, something that lasts, out of the apps, out of Tinder, I think specifically. And as discouraging as that sounds, that's actually the thing that kind of got me back into it. Was like, okay, now I have a framework. I have a timeline. I really like that. That makes me feel much more comfortable. That made me feel much better. And it was something like thousands of swipes. Like it was normal to go through thousands of swipes before you would get, you know, before you would get that girlfriend. You know what I mean? And so like if you're anything like me, that is way more motivating because now if I swipe through, I was literally
I was on Tinder, and I don't have a very good profile, so that's I actually just changed my profile a little bit today, and it's a little better now, but it's still not really a good profile because I don't go anywhere. I don't go anywhere, and when I do go places, I don't ask people to take pictures of me. You know what I mean? So like, no, I have an awful dating profile because of that. At least the picture part. You know, I used to go out more. People used to take pictures of me, but I was 19 years old and I was like 100 pounds lighter. So I don't feel good, and you can tell that it's like that's not how old I am anymore, and that's not those are old pictures. You can tell, and so yeah, I obviously wasn't going to use those pictures, not just to be not just to be nice, but because I don't want to meet people and immediately the first thing that they think is that they're disappointed. They're disappointed that I look nothing like the profile. Like that's not a good way to start things out. And yeah, I'm sure that's probably going to happen to me at some point. Is that I'm going to meet up with someone and they're going to look bad compared to what they looked like in the profile. But I haven't had that experience yet. Um, where was I going with this? I totally forget. Anyway, this person is saying nearly all the conversations end up dying, even though I showed interest in the other person. That's going to happen. That's going to happen in life, regardless of if it's with a girl or if it's dating or whatever. Like having conversations is really difficult, even for someone like me. Like I obsess almost about my own conversational proficiency. Like that's something that I value really highly in other people and also myself. And I'm judgmental of myself if I'm not good enough at that. If I'm not good enough at being a talker or good enough at having a conversation, I judge myself for that. Um, and I consider it to be one of the skills that I value the most in my regular life, as far as you know pursuing getting better at it, I guess. Um, and even still, like when I talk to people, sometimes like I fall flat on my face, and not just because I'm awkward or out of practice. Sometimes you just talk to somebody and you have no idea how to talk to them because it's every single conversation in some ways is like a game between two people, and that's part of how conversations are engaging, but it's also there's a social utility to that. You meet someone new, you have a back and forth, there's maybe some banter, maybe there's not really banter, maybe it's more business, it's all business, and all of it kind of comes together, and it's very very complicated, very very complex. And if you find yourself having trouble with conversations, that's also very very normal. um, I've noticed that in my life, I always feel like I'm the only one that has trouble with conversations, even though, you know, basically everywhere I go, once people kind of get to know me, usually they end up telling me in some form or another that I'm good at talking. I'm good at talking, I sound smart when I talk, um, or I'm good at having a conversation. And yet, even in spite of that, I still feel many times, multiple times a year, I will find myself feeling sorry for myself because I'm the only one on the planet that is this awkward and stupid. when it comes to how I behave verbally with other humans. Oh, good God. Oh, oh, um, that's a good metaphor. So I know that because I've had that experience, and I've had, people have told me, basically everybody that I've ever gotten to know has said that they have also have that same experience. That everybody feels that way sometimes when it comes to conversations. They feel like no one is worse at this than me on the planet, and you just feel so sorry for yourself, and you can't help it. Uh, and for some reason, the human brain just behaves this way, and I don't know why. It just does, and it's also extremely normal. Everybody feels this way sometimes. Some of you are worse at conversations than others. I can guarantee, though, that the people you're talking to, most of them really don't care as much as you think. So if that's what you're worried about, don't be. But as far as like dating is concerned, dating on dating apps and such, um, maybe that's a little bit more of a mystery. But I honestly just think it's probably has nothing to do with the actual conversation itself. It probably has more to do with like, I actually don't really. I didn't really like this person that much to begin with, and now I'm intimidated, or um, I'm second guessing. Like, do I really like this guy? What's going on here? I find myself doing that a lot. I'll swipe on somebody. I actually got a match recently with a woman, and felt like, you know like there was a little bit of dread when I realized that it was an actual match. I was like, oh shoot, because now all of a sudden you have more to commit to. You've got more stuff going on.
Um, and
Hold on. Now you have like a chore, right? You've got there's more expectations now.
um,
Ooh. Sorry, I'm having trouble focusing on two things at once. Hold on, I gotta change back to what I was. Gotta change my screen back. Um, so that's probably what's happening. Is that somebody swiped and then they were like, but I don't actually know if I really like this person, But they don't want to seem rude, and so they start a conversation. They're like, hey, what's up, how you doing, and they give you a little bit of a chance, but deep down they knew that they were probably not going to ask for a meetup. You know what I mean? They're probably not going to ask for a meetup. They're not going to push things much further. Whoa. And they knew it. They didn't want to commit. They didn't want to commit to a further conversation. They definitely don't want to commit to a meetup, and they're probably terrified of committing to a relationship with you in that instance, because people want to be sure if they want to go on a date, and they want to go on several dates, and move things along. They want to be sure. They want to be sure that it's not a waste of time, their time, your time. A lot of them, I know, if it's me, the thing I'm the most afraid of is hurting people's feelings, frankly, when it comes to dating. And it doesn't stop me from doing it sometimes. when it comes to relationships with the women around me. But maybe that's why it bothers me so much, because I know that I'm good at doing it and I'm capable of it. Um, so it's something like that, like it's something like that, and maybe a small percentage of those times you said something weird or dumb, and they were like, you know what, maybe not. But that's part of the dating app game. Like as a guy, you're expected to kind of bring something to the table. You know what I mean? And I don't think that, ow, I don't think that women don't. I think there is also an expectation on them, but I think the expectation's a bit different. As a guy, at least culturally speaking, it seems like there's a lot of pressure on us to say like just the right thing. Otherwise, they don't want to they don't want to date you or whatever. And this is a cultural thing that I've noticed basically my entire life, that it has always kind of stuck in my craw, and I've always kind of hated it. I've always hated that part of our culture where, you know, I mean, to be fair, most of my experience with it is like on television. You know what I mean? I haven't really had this kind of thing happen to me very much in real life. Um, where I was talking to a young lady, and I didn't say like just the right thing, so now all of a sudden they're like not wanting to talk to me. I haven't really had that experience very much. I think maybe there's one time in particular where I can think uh, where something kind of like that might have happened, but I'm not even sure if that's what she was thinking. Um, I am going back down. Why am I going back down? But and regardless, it's something that I hate about the culture, about our culture, is this expectation on us guys to say the perfect thing. Um, and so like, yeah, it's not fair. It sucks, but it is reality. So the best thing to do is to just try to accept it. Try to reach an acceptance stage as quickly as possible. That's how this is gonna feel. It's gonna feel like, you know, I have to say just the right thing in order to get this date, and if I don't, I've screwed it up. The truth is that's probably not really what's happening. But even in the off chance that it is, uh, that's just our culture, unfortunately. And it goes both ways. Like you have a conversation with a girl and you think, she's a little weird. I don't know about this one. Uh, I don't know if we're gonna vibe very well. It kind of goes both ways. And also, the truth there is that, if you're feeling like that about someone that you're talking to, it might just be because they're not particularly good at texting. They oh they don't know how to get their personality across through text in the same way as they would in person, because it's very, very different. It's a very different skill. It's a very different language. Anyway, um, he says, in fact, sometimes I feel like I ask too many questions. I'm getting pretty tired of all this dating advice because no matter what I do, it doesn't seem to work for me. Got rejected by a girl 2 years ago. I mean, that's 2 years ago. Like, 2 years ago, Like, that's. You gotta think of it like it's. Like if you were a door to door to door salesmen always talk about this, where like 14 out of 15 doors get literally slammed in your face. But that's not what you're out there to do. You're out there to look for that 1 in 15 who is interested. All you have to do is be successful one time, in order to get your date, right? And then, of course, you have to go on more dates, but, you at least got your foot in the door. So you have to think of it like that, man. You just got to put like the emotional part behind you and just be like, okay, I'm going to look at this from a numbers game. I got rejected by a girl 2 years ago. Like, was that the last time you tried? Like, no wonder you don't have a girlfriend. It's been 2 years, you know? I'm getting pretty tired of all this dating advice because no matter what I do, it doesn't seem to work for me. That's another great, uh, like, yeah. I mean, that's how everybody feels because all this stuff is you can hear advice after advice after advice, and yet things don't really seem to change, and it's going to be super frustrating because at the end of the day, if you're trying to progress a relationship with a woman, she's going to be a human, and she's going to be weird because she's a human. She's going to give you weird signals. She's going to be hot and cold. She's going to be a flight risk. Like this is just how this stuff works. And if you're anything like me, you're also going to do the same thing. You're going to be hot and cold. You're going to be a flight risk. You're going to have trouble trying. You're going to have trouble with the commitment part because it's really intimidating. Um, Being faced with the idea of committing to something, even just like the potential of having to commit to something, long term is like, it's like, it can be paralyzing, like you're just like, I don't want to mess this up, so I'm just not going to do it at all. That feeling. And that's super normal. But you got to try more than every 2 years. You've got to do like 2 a day, like, well, maybe don't like run out there and try to do a cold approach 2 times a day. Or maybe do, like maybe just walk around your city and look for people who, look single. I don't know. I wouldn't think that would work super well, but maybe it works better than Tinder. It actually probably does work better than Tinder. It's just, who wants to do that? Who wants to get all gussied up and go out and cold approach women on a sidewalk? Like that feels, I mean, I would potentially do that because it kind of sounds exciting, but like, ooh, that's gonna hurt. You know what I mean? That's gonna hurt. That's gonna be uncomfy. Uh, but maybe you'd get more success that way. I don't know. It can be a lot easier in person to impress people. At least if my experience. Um, I've tried doing all this working on yourself stuff. I don't know. My self esteem takes a massive hit every time I try to do this. Yeah, that's everybody who tries to meet someone online. This is what happens, and I think if you're anything like me too, a lot of it is like you kind of lie to yourself. You're like, I'm not that fat. I'm not that this or that. Um, you kind of lie to yourself a little bit, and you get on the apps and you start looking for people, you start looking for someone, and you realize I've been lying to myself this whole time. I am fat. I am, my beard is patchy. Uh, my teeth are yellow, and you just find yourself thinking these things. Um,
and you just realize, like, oh yeah, I've been lying to myself this whole time. And so yeah, like that alone can really be very uncomfortable. And getting on an app, it brings all that stuff to the surface. It brings all your insecurities up to the surface. Man, my forehead is huge. You know, my hair's weird. Uh, Yesterday I thought my hair looked great, and now today all of a sudden I realize that it looks awful. You know, and it's so overwhelming. My advice there would be to mitigate that. Um, it the way to mitigate that is to put yourself out there maybe a little bit more often. That way you don't have all this time in between to lie to yourself. Um, you know, the more often you put yourself out there, yeah, it's going to be uncomfortable at first, but you're going to be a lot more motivated, right? You're going to be more motivated to lose weight and get a haircut and do push-ups. You know what I mean? If you're putting yourself out there more frequently. So that's some good practical advice. And then the other piece of the puzzle is, everybody who does the app thing feels this way. Like it especially, I think especially men, like it absolutely takes your self-esteem out. And you just gotta try not to think about why people aren't swiping left, or people are swiping left on you. Don't think about that. Don't picture that. um Try not to think about why, like, what am I doing wrong. Think about the statistics. Think of it as a numbers game. uh and you'll be much more sane. You got to do dozens and dozens of swipes potentially before you get matches. Like, that's just how it works on Tinder. You're not gonna, if you send 3 likes, you can't be sitting there thinking like, those 3 girls rejected me. I was rejected by 3 girls yesterday. You can't do that. Okay, on something like Tinder, or any, like, online, or really meeting people in person. Like, you just cannot think that way. It is a numbers game, and you have to think of it like that instead. Because you don't know why they swiped left. It probably is for something that doesn't matter. Like half the people that I swiped left on were because they were too far away. You know, or because I was nervous to meet them. It was like, yeah, she's really pretty, but she's also really intimidating. I would be intimidated to hang out with this person. So, like, for me, that's really paralyzing a lot of the time, which is a weird thing that I didn't expect going into something like an app. Is like, you don't want them to be too attractive, because then you're like scared of them. You don't want them to be ugly for obvious reasons. And I found myself having that battle a little bit. So there's lots of reasons why someone's going to swipe left. I don't actually even understand why. Uh, I think a lot of people, they're on Tinder just because, but they really have no intentions of actually meeting up with somebody in the first place. They're just on Tinder because they're looking for someone just like you, and they're desperate. But then they get cold feet, and then they ignore Tinder for months, and they don't look at their profile for months. And Tinder still sends it out to people. It's something, every time I've used Tinder, that's how I've used it. I'll use it for like 2 days, and then I'll feel nauseous and stop looking at it and ignore it. Run away in pure abject fear. Um,
And as far as like I've tried doing all this working on yourself stuff, like don't work on yourself. Don't do it for them. Don't do it for the girls. It's a great icing on the cake, but don't do it for them. You'll come across as a much more well-rounded person and therefore a much more attractive person if you are yourself unabashedly, and the parts of yourself that you try to improve are the ones that you actually value. You know, you can't be trying to improve the parts of yourself that other people want you to. Whoop, 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 whoop. Whoop, 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 whoop. You got to be doing the value thing. Got to be like, what are my values? Improve that. Improve that part of yourself. Like for instance, today I was like, you know what? I've been on the apps. I'm feeling really fat, especially since I was like having to take pictures for Tinder. I was like, man, I'm feeling really fat. uh, and I was like, okay, what do we do about that? Like what do we do about that? When I look at somebody on the sidewalk that's fat, I don't even look twice. I don't even think twice. Um, so what do we do? Like that like but unfortunately, we kind of, in order to maximize this numbers game I've been talking about, we gotta, you know, we gotta change that about ourselves. So I was like, why am I fat? Why am I actually fat in the first place? Well, the reason I'm fat is because I overeat like crazy. It's not just because I eat junk food. People will say that all the time. It's like, well, you eat junk food, that's the problem. No, that's not the problem. The problem is that I'm eating way too much. And most of it is junk food, yes. But I'm eating like every day. Somehow I've stopped gaining weight though. Like I got to like a good 235 and I stopped gaining weight. Um and it's just the for me it's just the overeating. Like I'm freaking hungry all the time. And I used to think that it was like, I I've been on and off of antidepressants for several years now because I have OCD. Um, and I used to think it was that was making me hungrier. And maybe that's part of it. Uh, but then I realized, like, oh, the reason why I'm so hungry is because I'm fat. It's because you need more calories in order to maintain internal homeostasis. Uh, when you are this much larger, for a number of reasons. One of them is because you have like way more cells, because each one of your fat cells has to be alive. I think, as far as I understand, they are living cells that require calories in order to function. So if there's like twice as much of you than there used to be, that's a lot more uh, energy needed. Not to mention the fact that you literally weigh a lot more than you did before, which means that even apart from the cell thing that I just talked about, uh, you're expending more energy. You don't just need more energy to run the cells; you're expending more energy than you were before. And so your body responds to that because your body doesn't really want to lose weight, doesn't really want to, get rid of that extra fat. Your body responds to that by making you hungrier, giving you more of an appetite. And so I realized, like, oh, okay, the reason why I'm overeating is because I'm fat. You know, the reason why the fat person that you see on the sidewalk eating an entire chicken or whatever, the reason why they're doing that is not because they are such a gluttonous person that they cannot hold themselves back. They have that much of a problem with self control. It's because when you are that large, you have more of an appetite because you have so many extra cells and so much extra weight. Um, so much extra energy expenditure that you use to get around the town. You know what I mean? And I think there's even more stuff beyond that. I think like your lungs have to work harder. I think your heart has to work harder. Uh, so I think all of that comes together. Uh, I think everything has to work harder when you're fatter. That's the reason why they're eating so much. Is because of that. And your body knows how to keep you in homeostasis. It wants to keep your blood sugar at the proper levels, and so it makes your appetite match that ratio perfectly as best as it can. um, unless you have some kind of appetite suppressant of some kind, and even then I think your body still responds eventually to an appetite suppressant like caffeine or coffee or you know anything that could be potentially an appetite suppressant, like a pill that a doctor might prescribe, or like drugs, illegal drugs, which you probably shouldn't be doing anyway. But even stuff like caffeine, you know, it's going to respond to that appetite suppressant most likely eventually anyway. Um, by making you have even more of an appetite than you did before. So that's and I've known this about myself for probably years. Well, maybe not a full year that I had this epiphany. I was like, oh, the reason why I'm so hungry and I overeat so much is probably, I mean, maybe it's medication related, but it's probably not. It's probably, you know, I'm 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 just hungry because I'm fat and I'm overeating because of that, and it's as simple as I'm spending too much money on food. Like that is my motivation now. Is like, okay, maybe let's not worry about how fat I am. Let's think about being healthier, so that I could survive COVID if it comes back like 10 times worse or something. I kind of want to be able to survive that. So that's something. Uh, but also, like, I want to spend less money on food. I don't want to be, you know, I don't want to be spending so much money on food either. So those are both magnificent reasons to, you know, not eat as much. And obviously, the obvious problem with that is that that's going to affect your mental health, right? You eat less, you have low blood sugar and whatever, that's going to affect your mental health and it's going to make you all kinds of stuff. And I've experienced that before. Um, I haven't gotten to that point yet, so I'll tell you how that works out. um, but that doesn't, just because that is going to be a problem doesn't mean you necessarily have to go back on your diet completely. You can just, that's why they have cheat days, right? Uh, for the sort of mental health part of it, or just the motivation part of it. You're more motivated to diet if you have those cheat days every once in a while. And then the other, like, as far as like losing weight, that I've found the most difficult part is just like coming up with a plan. Like, what am I gonna do? I've tried to just like cut out anything fattening. Like I've tried to limit my food to only like chicken, like plain chicken, you know, raw that I cook myself, and then veggies also raw, and that's it. Like I don't even cook the veggies. I've tried that. I tried that for a while, and it was really awful. I, it sucked. I immediately felt terrible. So not doing that, and that's not a great idea to just quit your entire, just to quit your food life entirely and cold turkey and go for something that doesn't even feel like food to you. Uh, I don't recommend doing that because you're gonna burn out very quickly and you're just gonna go right back to it. And that's what I did, and that's what I would do again if I tried if I tried to do that. So what I'm doing this time is like I just like when I was in college, I was able to lose a bunch of weight. I didn't even really need to lose weight, but for some reason I thought I was fat. And I was like 170 pounds or something like that. I'm 5'9", so that's not very much. Um, and I was like, no, I need to go back to 150, which was like what I thought my healthiest weight was. And maybe it was, I needed to drop back down to 150. And I lost 20 pounds by doing this exact method that I'm about to tell you, which was I literally went to all my favorite places. I didn't stop. Instead of, I would go to a fast food place and I would get just the chicken and I would nix the fries and I would nix the soda and like just the chicken by itself, just the meat, fried chicken. Um, it was probably like 500 calories or something like that just for that. But that's what I did. I lost 20 pounds. And I think I still had cheat days. And I stopped snacking, um, all snacks, like any and all snacks, even the ones that I thought were healthy, which is really important, by the way. Just because you think something's healthy doesn't mean it's healthy. Just because you've read the box and the box tells you it's healthy doesn't mean it is. Um, Especially since like a lot of these like snack people, they try to trick you with their label, their nutrition label. I was my dad was telling me, he was like, I eat popcorn every night and it's a healthy snack. He was trying to convince me that it was a healthy snack. He was like, you should eat popcorn, it's a healthy snack. I was like, Dad, it's made of butter, basically. It cannot be a healthy snack. And he was like, yeah, look at the label, says it's like 130 calories for the whole bag or something like that. And then I looked closer at the label and I realized that the label was clearly intentionally worded in such a way that made it seem like it was 130 calories, but it was actually 400 calories. A bag of popcorn um, is 400 calories, and people think it's a healthy snack. So, even the snacks that you think are healthy snacks probably are not healthy snacks. I'm not saying that you should starve yourself, but if you're going to eat something, eat a meal. Eat a meal. And so, when I was in, that's my plan basically. Is I'm going to cut out as many snacks as possible. If I'm just like starving, of course I'm going to eat something, you know, but I'm going to cut out as many snacks as possible. Um, and then I'm just going back to that, like, I'm not going to stop going to the fast food places necessarily, but I'm just going to get like the chicken or whatever. I'm going to cut out most of the meal, the fat parts, and get down to like a 500 calorie meal level. Now that's only like 1,500 calories a day, which I think if I tried to eat only 1,500 calories a day, especially at this weight, I think I would have seizures. So I'm not super sure how that's going to go. The day's not even over. So, uh, that's yeah. um, I would imagine that would probably not go particularly well. But every diet that I've ever done that's worked, I've had cheat days, I've had cheat meals, I've had really bad weeks where I just like gorge myself the entire week. Okay, that's normal for dieting. Um, I will say I feel a little overwhelmed because if I'm gonna get back to like a healthy weight that like an attractive guy would have, I'm gonna have to lose a lot of weight because I'm like 235, and the last time that I felt attractive, I was probably 170 or 180 or something like that. So that's kind of my goal at this point. Um, Shoo. But the more weight that you lose, sometimes it makes you feel bad. Um, so if it starts making you feel bad, I always recommend to myself to eat more. If it's really making me feel bad, I eat more. I do a cheat day at that point. Uh, but you get used to it. The less you eat, and as time goes by, you get used to it, and it becomes your normal. And when I was in college, I dropped down to 150 pounds because I was just eating like grilled chicken every day. That was it. That was the only thing I was eating every day was grilled chicken, apart from my cheat days, which I had probably once a week or so. Um, and that's how I dropped down to 150 pounds. And by the time I got down to my target weight, it just felt very normal. It felt like, oh yeah, of course, this is what I do every day, and I'm fine with it. I wasn't like I was satisfied, you know. I didn't want more. I didn't want more food. I didn't want to eat more calories. I felt like it felt fine. But it takes time to get there, It takes time to adjust, and it's not going to happen to me probably maybe ever again, but I'm not trying. I'm not trying. I'm not trying to get back down to 150 because I don't feel like I that would be my best weight anyway. That's very thin. Uh, I don't think you need to be that thin. I don't think that's necessarily what women are into anyway. Whoop, 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 whoop. Damn it. My eyes are. I wore contacts today for the first time in a long time, and because I was taking pictures, because I was taking pictures for Tinder, I decided to put my contacts in because I looked so dumb with my glasses. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna put my contacts in for the first time in like I don't even know how long. I think it's been 2 years, baby. And the contacts are like old contacts that are like probably expired and they're not my prescription anymore. Anyway, what am I talking about? Um, this guy's saying, should I take a break? Am I burnt out? Am I trying too hard? I really like to figure out what I'm doing wrong. What you're doing wrong is that you have your expectations. You are expecting it to be going better than it is, and that's not what you should be expecting. You are on Tinder. You are on a dating app. It's going to be this frustrating. It's supposed to be like this. Uh, anyway, but when it comes to like insecurities and things like that, like just remember that like the thing that you're insecure about right now, you're not necessarily always insecure about it. I've frequently found myself feeling insecure about like my forehead is really big, you know, and then I'll get like a haircut or something like that, and I'll be like, oh, actually, it's not as big as I thought. It was just like my haircut made it look bigger. You know what I mean? I have a weird like my hair's kind of weird, and it does that. Makes my forehead look huge for some reason. Um, so I'll go in for a haircut, and I'll be like, oh, I have a completely different forehead than I thought because like for some reason it was like an optical illusion thing. Uh, and then you have good days and bad days about everything else. But that doesn't necessarily mean like if you genuinely like you have to try to take like an objective viewpoint and look at yourself and be like, okay, do I look worse because of this? And try to be as objective as possible and try to change something. If you are insecure about whatever it is, try to change it. And I think that's what really sucks about being fat is because it takes such a long time to change that. Um, and I guess the same thing goes for like if you're really scrawny and you don't really have like muscle mass or anything like that. I think that can have a very similar feeling. Although I would argue maybe that like gaining muscle mass maybe is a little bit easier than losing weight, at least when it comes to changing your overall silhouette of your body. I think you can change the look of your body much more quickly uh, through working out. At least if you're doing it right. But it's also worth noting that if you're skinny or whatever, uh, that's not exactly a bad look. But being fat, however, people don't like that. And it's coming from a fat man. That's coming from a fat man. People don't like to look at fat people. People do sometimes like to look at skinny people. Actually, frequently they like to look at skinny people. um, what else was I talking about? I don't know. So like that's the best that I can do. If you're insecure about your face, I mean, there's makeup. you know, especially for women, there's makeup. For guys, there's also makeup. But I'm a little bit insecure about my eyebrow, or not my eyebrows, my eyebrows and my eyelashes because sometimes if the lighting is weird, they just kind of disappear, and I look like a completely different person. Um, so there have been times where I've considered like going to like a hairdresser and like getting them dyed, getting my eyebrows at least dyed. That's something that you can do if it's really bothering you that much. Um, I don't know if you can do that with your eyelashes. You probably can darken, your eyelashes, but I also don't know if I need to or if it's just like if it's just like I haven't been able to see it very objectively yet. Like, is this something that I should change? I don't know. I don't know if I should or if I care that much. Um, and then there's other things like depending on the lighting, I look super pale, like I'm dying. uh, which again, I don't know if I really care that much. But sometimes I go out and I tan in the sun, you know, and I usually look better for it. And that's pretty easy actually. That really only takes like two sessions at most, as long as you don't burn yourself. Um, of being out in the sun a little while. You can do that in a weekend. You can make yourself look normal in a weekend. And you can do and it can be enjoyable like while you do it. Like you don't have to stop your life in order to do some of these things. You can do it. I'm going all the way back. Oh my lord in heaven, that was such a far way to fall. It's like how I turned into an old lady there. Oh my lord in heaven. What was I talking about? I don't know. Most of the things that you're insecure about, you can change, basically, is what I'm saying. When it comes to your physical appearance. Now, if you're old, maybe not as much. You can get Botox. I wouldn't recommend that. um, but I also don't necessarily think that like if you're old, like it doesn't. I feel like you still look good to other old people. You know, like old people still seem to like each other. For whatever reason, they still seem to like each other. So, like, I'm not too worried about aging because of that. Uh, yeah. What else? What else is there? When it comes to like changing things about your life that you don't like, the frustrating thing is that you usually have to do a little bit every day. You want to do a lot at once because like that's how your brain works. But the way to change the things about your life that you hate is to do a little bit every day, not to do a lot at once. And that's really hard. Unless it's a tan. You can get a tan pretty much all at once. you, you can get at least a little bit of sun, a little bit of color into your skin. Even when it comes to like your face, because like that's something that I've been frustrated by for years is like, what do you do if you don't like your own face? Like there's nothing you can do, right? Well, I mean, yeah, you can get cosmetic surgeries and things like that, but those are expensive and risky. And a lot of times, the way that you change yourself isn't as good as is not necessarily you change yourself to look like not as good as the perfect version of you, right? Even if the surgery goes well, you could still look better. Whoops. And so I've thought about that quite a bit, and I haven't come to any like super definitive conclusions, except that I've noticed that people tend to look better if they have the kind of bone structure. I don't really know how else to explain this, but people tend to look more attractive if they have the kind of bone structure that looks like it would survive like a blunt force trauma. And there's a reason for that. There's an evolutionary reason for that, which is, your facial features are really, really important. And if you have facial features that are weaker, for some reason, in our modern age, that's really common, for one thing. It's really common to have facial features that are just not quite right. Whoop. Sorry, I gotta focus on this. Whoa. Uh, and again, I've heard theories as to why this is the case, and and they're probably true, but I don't know for sure. Um, but my particular theory is that like, okay, what happens if you join an MMA gym? You know, like do something that is going to deliver blunt force trauma to your face in a relatively safe way, not in a self mutilation kind of a way. If you truly, have weak facial features, uh, and you'll notice that the people that you know who are unattractive, it usually is some combination of that. It's like they don't have cheekbones that are the right size or the right shape, or they've got a weak chin, or they've got a weak jaw, um, or their eyes bug out of their head. These are all things that when you look at someone and they've got it and they are attractive, to a large percentage of people, not just like a niche type of attractive person, but like someone who is considered attractive by a lot of people. They usually have strong facial features in this way, strong facial bone structure. They've got a brow that protects their eyes. They've got cheekbones that protects the middle of their face and their upper dental arch. They've got a chin that protects their jaw and their lower dental arch, which is actually very important for boxing, apparently. Um, I know boxers sometimes refer to your chin as just your ability to take a punch, but I also think that they refer to your chin as like literally your chin. Like if you have a strong chin, you will be a better boxer, because you can absorb punches to that area of your face. That's probably the purpose of a chin is to protect the bottom part of your face and jaw and teeth from a punch from an adult man. That's probably what at least if you are, another adult man. It's to protect that part of your face from something. So the people in your life, or the people that you know of who are attractive, usually they have some combination of facial bone structure and features that looks like it can absorb impact. You know, the purpose of it is to absorb impact, and I think that's exactly what it's for. And a lot of people are missing that bone structure for whatever reason, and there's theories about that. Um, Whatever the phenomenon is, it's the same phenomenon that's causing people to need their wisdom teeth to be removed and to need dental braces, because it's causing our faces to change shape. The human race, our faces are changing shape so quickly that we haven't evolved to have fewer teeth yet. And so our wisdom teeth become impacted, and your mouth becomes crowded and your teeth become crooked. That's actually the reason why teeth become crooked, is because our mouths are too small, and they've been getting smaller and smaller over the centuries. And this is like apparently a documented thing, um, that people's mouths, the upper and lower part of the mouth, both upper and lower dental arches have been getting smaller and smaller, more and more confined, and people's teeth are getting more and more crooked. There's a reason why, like if you look at a giraffe, they don't need braces. And that's the way that people are as well. Like we aren't supposed to need braces. We aren't supposed to need dental corrections or, you know, wisdom teeth removal. Uh, and whatever is causing that is the same phenomenon. They just don't necessarily know exactly what it is. There's theories, but they don't know exactly for sure. But my personal theory is that, like if you were to exercise your face, potentially you could actually change the shape of your face and actually make yourself more attractive. People assume that, if you have an ugly face, that you're done, you're screwed, you can't change it. But like that's not exactly logical. Just because your face and your skull is made of bone doesn't mean that you can't change that. In fact, many different parts of your body that are made of bone can change shape. Your hands can get bigger and stronger if you use your hands, or if you work out a lot, or if you work with your hands. can go from having tiny hands to having big, strong hands just by using your hands. And so that's the same thing. There was a period of time where I was using jaw exercisers. I do not recommend using jaw exercisers. Because I think it was misaligning my teeth. My teeth were becoming misaligned because I was using a jaw exerciser. So I realized that I needed to stop doing that. Anyway, but I think there are ways to make yourself look better if you don't look good, which is, you know, that feels right, doesn't it? It feels wrong that like I'm ugly and I can't do anything about it. Just feels wrong. Like that shouldn't be the case. I can't give me that. I fold. Um. Anyway, but I wouldn't recommend going and trying to change the shape of your face unless you really know what you're doing. Uh, but that was my theory. Was like, what if you did? Because I think the whole reason, like I said, it's meant to absorb blunt force trauma to your face. Is the reason why you have cheekbones and that sort of stuff. It's also part of the chewing structure of your face, so I'm not entirely sure. I think the first one is more important, but they kind of work in tandem, which is normal for anatomy. Most of the pieces of our anatomy that we know of, like there's more than one function to it. There's the reason why we have that anatomy. Evolutionarily speaking, is for that. It because it wasn't just useful; it was the best out of a handful of options. Maybe not the best possible, but the better of like two or three options is typically how evolution seems to work. Um, I kind of forget what I was talking about. Just like something about insecurities. I don't know. And I also think a lot of people's insecurities are invalid insecurities. Like I'm too short, like if you're short, like I'm never gonna get a girlfriend. I'm too short. It's like, well, there's short girls, you know. Yeah, I get it. Short girls also want tall boyfriends, right? But that doesn't mean they're gonna get it. Doesn't mean they're gonna get the tall boyfriend. Ooh, ooh, ooh. And there's also tall girls that have trouble dating because they're so tall, So it's balanced, perfectly balanced, as all things should be. Not that it feels fair. It definitely doesn't feel fair. But that's, you're not going to end up with the hottest woman on the planet, basically, I think is the point. That's not how it works. That's not what's going to happen, you know? So just give up on that goal if that's your goal. But the girl or the guy that you like the most isn't necessarily going to be the hottest person on the planet. The person that you have a crush on, probably not the hottest person on the planet. So that should be very encouraging. You don't have to be a 10 out of 10 to get your crush. You don't even have to get your crush. You can develop a crush on somebody just because you hang out with them all the time. It's actually It seems like that's how most crushes develop. Uh, is just because you're around someone all the time. Sorry, I'm blinking. My contacts are getting dry. Anyway, but if you're like me and you're fat and you need to be not so fat to get back into the dating scene, I would highly recommend considering how much you were eating and actually doing. I know this is something that people say a lot when you're trying to get into dieting is like you have to calorie count. You got to calorie count because you need to understand like, okay, how many calories should I be eating a day? How many calories do I eat a day? You need to understand that those two numbers are very different. uh, and if you lower the number to an appropriate number that you should be eating a day, um, yeah, it's going to make you feel uncomfortable, but you're going to get used to it. Eventually you're going to get used to that level of calories. I don't know how long it'll take. It might take weeks. Uh, Probably won't take weeks, you know, but it'll take time, and you'll get there. Uh, really the most motivating thing for me at this point is like, yeah, I've got to lose like 50 pounds. But the most motivating thing for me at this point is the fact that I have lost weight before. I actually lost 50 pounds once on purpose, kind of. I was kind of sick at the time, so it was easier because I was sick anyway. Um, I didn't have a ton of an appetite anyway because I was, sick. But yeah, I lost like 50 pounds once. I was, let's see, I ended off at like 138 pounds or something. And I started at like 185. So it wasn't quite 50, right? It was almost 50. I was at like 185 and I dropped down to like 130 something. Because that's what I thought was like the healthiest weight. For whatever reason, that's what I genuinely thought I needed to weigh in order to be hot. I was like, I need to be 137 pounds. My goal was 135, I think, and I never quite got to the goal. Um, but I lost a lot of weight, and it was not healthy. But oh well, I did it, and I that's motivating. That's motivating knowing that you can do something like that. And it only took a handful of months, like maybe 6 months or something at the most. Um, Probably more like four and a half. It was a little too fast, a little bit too much weight too quickly, but uh, I, I whatever. And I don't quite remember how I did it. I was hardly eating anything. Is how I did it. That's because I was feeling sick and I had no appetite. So I was hardly eating anything at all. But there were days where I ate a lot. You know, I would eat. I just like gorge myself on junk food. Probably about once a week. So I don't know if I'm gonna do that strategy again or what I'm gonna do. I might end up doing something like that. We'll see. It's not what they recommend. It's definitely not what the docs recommend. I wasn't starving myself. I wasn't completely like I was eating some, but I would eat like one small meal a day, and then like sometimes I would eat like a whole box of Cheez-Its or something like that. Um, Along with the small meal. Yeah, I don't know. Don't know what I'm gonna do there. Don't know if I'm gonna go back to that. Anyway, I'm super tired all of a sudden, so I think that's enough for today. It's only an hour and 30, but this has been fun. I'm trying to decide if I want to post this to YouTube or not. I want to post this to YouTube. Sure, why not? I don't know how. I don't remember how. I'll figure it out. Okay. See you guys next time.